Before we begin, we want to introduce the three organizations hosting this event tonight. We have MEChA, who promotes Chicano unity, empowerment through activism, education, and cultural awareness. We also have SPARCS, which is dedicated to community-centered service, collaborative research, and public scholarship, along with EACs, which is an undergraduate student-run organization affiliated with the Ecological Society of America. Their mission is to support underrepresented students in sustainability and conservation with mentorship, workshops, and field trips. We have Kacy Hovden from Environmental Justice Staff Attorney. She's an Environmental Justice Staff Attorney with the New Mexico Environmental Law Center. Her work focuses on centering, supporting, and defending frontline indigenous, low-income, and communities of color in their fights for clean, safe, and accessible environments.
She works alongside communities to challenge systemic barriers, advance civil rights protections, and expand meaningful public participation in environmental decision-making. José Saldaña Jr. and Maldonado are some of our community organizers here tonight. They work directly with residents in Doña Ana County, and they expand civil participation, strengthen local leadership, and advocate for environmental and social justice. Their efforts focus on empowering communities that are often overlooked in major development decisions, including rural residents, colonia communities, and low-income families by supporting them in navigating public processes, building collective power, and shaping policy around land, water, and local governance.
We also have Bill Addington from West Texas Defense Fund. Bill Addington is an environmental advocate from West Texas with decades of experience working on issues affecting desert ecosystems, water resources, and rural communities. He has been involved in efforts to protect local environments from industrial impacts, including pipeline projects, waste proposals, and other developments that threaten already stressed desert regions. His work focuses on community awareness, conservation, and understanding how large infrastructure projects affect land and water across the Borderlands.
But from our perspective, and in terms of working and organizing in Doña Ana County and the Borderlands, why are they attractive to developers? It's kind of simple. It's because it's cheap and easy. The land is, fragmented. There's also fragmented jurisdiction. There's a lot of political urgency around the need for jobs, and communities have less formal power, to be honest, especially in Santa Teresa, which is an unincorporated colonia in Doña Ana County. Doesn't really have a lot of political power.
My name is Jose. I'm an electrical engineer. I live in Sunland Park, and I think the community in Sunland Park and Santa Teresa are mostly the older people that are engaged in the community events. They don't understand what's going on. This information goes past their knowledge, and on top of it, private companies want to take advantage of the land, and we get a lot of solar. I mean, there's a lot of solar farm, and that's part of the reason why they choose this area over here.
Yeah, I think I'm from Sierra Blanca, Texas, and it just like Sunland Park and Santa Teresa, they've been targeted over and over for projects no one else would take, and I think it's a clear case of environmental racism, and this is a case for environmental justice that we all should be caring about. This affects the city of El Paso, the county of El Paso, just as much as it affects, the most people. It affects most of the people living in Sunland Park, but it's. This is a classic case of how they target us. Low income, what they consider people that are non-college educated. You have cheap land and willing politicians that are willing to sell us out for some dollars that they may get legally or illegally. And of course, so-called economic development. In other words, they claim there's going to be jobs. So jobs versus keeping your home clean. That's what they want us to be fighting over. transparency would be where they don't come in and hire people to lobby and sign, and then have them sign non-disclosure agreements, including the commissioners, which will sign non-disclosure agreements, which are legally binding, and then have them vote on this without any notice to the public, just a few weeks. They should release their entire plan of how they want to power this thing and how much water they'd be using, how much space they'd be taking up, and show the negative impacts and, of course, the employment claims of building the facility and running the facility, which are two different things. So they've completely done this under the table, and I just want to offer this. What they did, and you mentioned Project Jupiter, they started out with this Borderplex group, and they said it was Project Jupiter. Then all of a sudden, after the 4-to-1 vote to approve all this and to issue revenue bonds for $165 billion, imagine that. They're issuing $165 billion, asking the county, this poor county, to issue a massive amount of bonds, revenue bonds, for them to build the facility. That is not being transparent. That is lying to the people when in reality, they don't have the money to build this $165 billion project by themselves. Sam Altman and OpenAI does not have $165 billion. Sam Altman and OpenAI does not have $500 billion that they've committed to the Stargate project, which President Trump talked and bragged about during his inauguration. And the only one built is in Abilene right now as part of the Stargate project. I just want to quickly tell you that they want to also build the same project in Marfa, Texas, Stargate. So being up in a board would not be pulling a bait and switch saying this is Project Jupiter and Borderplex, and then all of a sudden after it's approved, oh, it's OpenAI and SoftBank and NVIDIA. That's a bait and switch.
I've been attending community meetings and everything for over 2 years. When arsenic came up in Sunland Park and it became a big thing, I'm aware that a lot of people knew on the news. It was a big issue. And we've been fighting this fight for clean water in Sunland Park for a long time, for decades. But I got very involved 2 years ago. And 3 weeks before September 19th, the day on the hearing that they voted yes for Project Jupiter, they only notified us 3 weeks before. We didn't have no information on it. They just wanted to pass this real fast without the community getting involved, without the community being engaged. And if you can see the man over there in the back is Jose Ibarra with glasses. He is right underneath Project Jupiter border complex. So he's the one that's for this project.
Proponent.
Yeah, one of the local lobbyists. He's been hired by the company.
Spy. That's the spy over there.
Any project or form of construction, requires a plan, right? You're gonna build a house, you have to have a plan. And in New Mexico, there's actually several mechanisms where counties and municipalities have to tell the state, there's this project, we're gonna fund it, and then they look for the funding. And throughout that whole process, as New Mexicans, we actually can have access to those documents, and we can, go to those government agencies and ask to see them and review them and give public comment about it before stuff even gets approved. But in this case, that didn't happen. So for me, transparency really looks like, again, starting this whole process with, this is what the project looks like, this is what it's going to do, these are the environmental impacts that it's going to have on the community, and then again, inviting folks to the table to have that discussion. In Project Jupiter's, the case of Project Jupiter, I'll say, there were some public meetings that were held within that 3-week period of we're going to vote on this project, and then we're voting, and it happened. The vote happened. And I attended 3 of those, and it was the companies who were talking about the project, but again, there was no schematics, there was no plans. There was a lot of differing information about water usage, about power needs, what that's going to look like. And to be honest, also when we had a conversation with the legislator, I said, well, I'd really like to see some scientific evidence, right? I want to see studies. I want to see the environmental impacts, because the people who are talking about this project are business folks, right? They are financiers. They are not engineers. They're not scientists that are actually going to construct these data centers, along with Project Jupiter in particular. Also, there will be a very large natural gas power plant that's going to go along with this project. So those scientists environmental scientists who could come in and talk about the project and what as a community we're going to face, were nowhere to be found. So just in terms of transparency, I would definitely say that communities have the right to know, right? These are your neighborhoods, these are your streets, this is where you live. You have a right to know what's going to go up behind your houses, and you have a right to know what pollution might be emitted. You have a right to know what sort of waters, natural resources are going to be utilized, and how is that going to impact your electric bills as well as your access to clean and safe drinking water.
To add on to what Daisy and Jose have shared, so in New Mexico we have the New Mexico Inspection of Public Records Act, and so that law is supposed to be able to enable us as the public to put in records requests to different state agencies, local departments, for any sort of public record that includes contracts, the application for Project Jupiter for this $165 million in industrial revenue bonds. So for what we can tell you, yes, these laws exist, but they're not protective enough, especially when local governments and state governments and departments don't follow them. And so what we saw is we submitted an Inspection of Public Record Act request to every state agency, every state department, and Doña Ana County about Project Jupiter back in May of 2025. Way back then, before it was called Project Jupiter, but we knew Borderplex Digital Assets was involved. We asked for communications, records, contracts, anything, and to this day we haven't gotten anything. They tried to close it within a week, said there was no records responsive. Most of the state agencies said they couldn't respond, they don't have anything. But we know that Doña Ana County entered into a non-disclosure agreement, which is public record, at the same time that we filed an IPRA request. And then fast forward to August 26th, when Doña Ana County announced that they were going to have this hearing in 3 weeks, 23 days to issue billions of dollars in industrial revenue bonds for this project. On the agenda packet, the application was supposed to be available for all of us to review. And instead it said, go to the clerk's office, ask for it in person. So we all went together, asked for it in person, and they had no idea what we were talking about. And then they said, oh, the key's lost. We can't find it. It's in a cabinet and it's locked. We can't find it. So then we ended up finally getting the application about a week later. We submitted online some Inspection of Public Records Act requests to Doña Ana County. And the application itself had a lot of redacted information. And the companies itself, as Bill mentioned, they were only entity A, B, and C. No one said anything about Oracle being involved, OpenAI, Borderplex, Stack Infrastructure, all these folks. So for us, when we read through the packet, especially as attorneys, there's nothing in there to tell us what this project is, what kind of impacts it's going to have on the community, what it means for the community, and that's not transparent. And it doesn't mean a lot if we have laws that open up the public to transparency, but then folks aren't following it.
Can I just, that's how we met Jose, that man over there in the back. That's how we met him. Jose Ibarra. So that's how we met him. He was trying to bring filters to the community, trying to tell them, hey, we'll fix your water. We're a private company here, and it ended up being Project Jupiter at the end. He showed up with a commissioner from Doña Ana, Gloria Gameros, And she didn't, she was just trying to convince the crowd and not being transparent on that either, you know? So that's on top of it.
How do y'all feel about him being here if he could extract information and run to DC the next day?
It's just information.
We're not sharing all our secrets.
No strategy.
No strategies.
He's heard all of this.
He's heard it, yes.
He knows. What a creep.
What a creep, right?
All right, guys, we'll continue with the panel.
How do you sleep at night?
Shame. That's very corrupt of you. That's very
Shame.
corrupt. You're corrupt.
Sell out your community.
Shame.
Shame.
We want water.
Get them out, guys.
No corruption. Stop the corruption in my community.
Right.
No more.
Although El Paso and Doña Ana County are separate systems, both rely on the same stress regional aquifers, the Mesilla and the Hueso Bolson, and an increasingly unreliable Rio Grande. With El Paso utilizing between 110 and 160 million gallons per day, what does a project like Project Jupiter mean for regional water security in southern New Mexico and the borderlands as a whole?
Yeah, well, it sets a very bad precedent. I would say a horrible precedent. When you're talking about an already stressed desert community, all of us, including the city of El Paso and the county of El Paso, has already had water woes. I don't know if y'all know this. I live in Sierra Blanca, that's Hudspeth County, your neighbors to the east of us. Did you know that El Paso thinks, they believe in that, that's probably true, the Public Service Board of Water Utilities, that they're going to run out of water here. So what they've done in my county is spend about $30 million to buy out all these farms in Del City, Texas, and they want to pipe via a 5-foot diameter pipeline 25,000 acre-feet of water back to El Paso every day. That pipeline would cost $1 billion of your money. Because who funds this? The ratepayers. Everyone that pays a water bill is funding that. So this pipeline, which no one talks about anymore, they just ink the deal. So they'll end up owning all the farms on about 20,000 acres in Del City, Texas. You will own it. All the Public Service Board water utilities will own that, and they will phase out farming completely. This is right next to the Guadalupe Mountains National Park. So what business, if they want to import that much water that would cost $1 billion in today's dollars, probably more later, in the next 10 years when they want to do this, what business do they have bringing water-intensive industries that use a lot of water? Now, they say, I just want to offer this and I don't want to go on too long. They're saying they're using a closed-loop system, right? Okay, that's better than using evaporative cooling to cool their processing, which uses many millions of gallons a day. But when they do that and use this closed-loop system to cool it, it uses a lot more electricity to cool it. So that means more electricity used. That electricity needs water to generate, and that's what they want to do. Now, they bring in about 20, what they're saying is, just like Elon Musk did with XAI, bring in about 20 or 30 turbines, natural gas-powered turbines using frack gas from the Permian Basin. You have pipelines going through here from Fort Stockton. They use that frack gas to power it with, power the facility with about 15 or 20 turbines, because they're going to need at least a gigawatt of power. That's 1,000 megawatts just to start. So they do that, and then in the future, they've already stated this, and they let the cat out of the bag. They want to build a nuclear reactor there, a small nuclear reactor. That's called a small SMR, small modular reactor, and they're proposed. They've never one been built yet, but I can tell you, my background for 25 years is fighting radioactive waste and nuclear power dumps like the one proposed in my home in Sierra Blanca that took 8 years to stop. So I'm very well versed in, I've got probably a citizen's PhD in nuclear power generation and the waste, the high and low level waste that it provides. So keep that in mind. They want to use vast amounts of water from the Mesilla Bolson The Waco Bolson, a major aquifer, it's already been compromised because of unsustainable use by El Paso. So what you have left is in underground water, aquifers, is the Mesilla Bolson. And then the bolsons they want to tap in the future, 100 miles away in Del City. So, this is the worst place, just like Tucson, to be putting any water-intensive project, especially one that burns more gas, just to produce the gas, uses a lot of water. From cradle to grave, this thing's using massive amounts of water, from the chips to the frack gas, to the transportation, and all the way to burning natural gas to power this thing.
So I just want to touch base on water wells over in Santa Teresa and Sunland Park. The county owns half of them, like a portion of them, and then Sunland Park owns a portion of them. And I noticed on the drawings on water well number 1, when they were proposing, like they were showing drawings, water well number 1 was already isolated, like they already dried it up using too much water. And waters well 2 and 3 they're using all that water to do the border wall over there by Santa Teresa.
No,
so they're already using a lot of water. And right now, construction is already going on for Project Jupiter. They're grading and they're using a lot of water right now. They don't even have permits, nothing for us as contractors or engineers, that if we start any work without a permit, we get fined real fast. They stop the project and they get to do this.
They're spraying water for dust control, huh?
Right.
Yeah. Quickly to add on to that in terms of access to clean and safe drinking water, again, this project will be utilizing the municipal and or county water that José Saldaña is talking about. And that's the same water that is fed into homes, right, for Sunland Park and Santa Teresa residents, which is about a little over 20,000 people. And they've discussed actually going further down into the aquifer to access more brackish water, with this dream that they're going to clean it up and somehow use it. I know here in El Paso you all have a desalination plant, but it's, as you all know, it takes a really long time to construct. It's very expensive and it actually doesn't produce enough water. So in fact, they're going to access that clean, or that water, really, that's intended for human consumption, because otherwise that community and all of the water that comes, I live in Las Cruces, all of our water is from an aquifer. It doesn't come from surface water. And so if this project is allowed to access that water, then it puts everybody at risk of not having water, aside from agriculture or animals or plants, the fish, anything like that. We could easily not have any drinkable water in our community.
In our aquifer, there hasn't, at least in New Mexico, and I'm sure because we share an aquifer with y'all in El Paso, and then over the border in Juárez, is that they haven't done any sort of studies to see how much water we have left in our aquifer. So we don't even know how much water we have left to drink. And then on top of that, what we do know from the publicly available application for the industrial revenue bonds for Project Jupiter is that all it says is that they will rely on the public water system and collaborate with CRUA, Camino Real Regional Utility Authority, who's been the public utility serving Sunland Park and Santa Teresa for the project. And that's for operations. They don't speak to construction, and nothing in the application says how much water they're using for either. So that's where we're at.
People could actually form together in El Paso County to sue, because El Paso residents are affected by this project. I mean, this is an imaginary state line there. I used to live on Buff Canyon Circle off Mesa Hills. It's like 2 miles from Sunland Park,
Yeah.
So this is right there. And, they're saying that they could sue, but I think if we want to beat this, this is how we win. And I'll go ahead and say the strategy for whatever lobbyist is there. I don't care. But it's going to be stopped politically. Politics brought this in. Legal is good on any issue, but you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket and say, oh, we got a lawsuit, and everyone sits back and watches to see what happens. You'll lose that way. You will lose by thinking, oh, it's in the hands of the lawyers. The way we beat this is we hold our, and I'm going off topic here, but you hold the politicians accountable, not only that approved it, but here in El Paso. Your city council is supporting this, your mayor is supporting this, your county judge is supporting this, your commissioner's court supporting this, the public service board supporting this, which is the water utilities, your water utilities that you pay a bill to, for goodness sakes. Why isn't, where's the outrage, for goodness sakes, here from El Pasoans? This is your water as much as it is, Las Cruces is water. And Juárez, by the way, Juárez taps into it, and we have people in Juárez that are very concerned. Eduardo and I are in a coalition that are opposing this, and they're pretty upset about the prospect of having the last aquifer that's good. I mean, the Hueco Bolson has been compromised, depleted because of projects like this. Rest assured, if this happens, you're going to have another one. It's not going to be over. So, these are popping up every day. And I'll just quickly say, this is the biggest issue in the United States right now. Economically, environmentally, and socially, it is the biggest issue. The only thing holding up this economy right now is this artificial house of cards of investment by the tech bros and speculators into AI. Otherwise, we'd be in a recession. So this has vast impacts across the board to our society, to our way of life, to our jobs, and how we beat it is, yes, a lawsuit could be filed and should be filed by concerned El Pasoans, but we must hold our politicians accountable. Because if you're silent, it's a yes vote. Silence is a yes vote, and your silence will not protect you.
So I just want to say that low-income people, there's a lot of elderly people that are on fixed income. They cannot afford this IRB bonds being increased and putting it on the residents. And also, for example, there's the next meeting that I went after that September 19th meeting on CRUA, the company that supplies water there in Sunland Park. They are already increasing also. They came up that they want to increase the rates too, so poor people that are on fixed incomes, it's going to affect all of us.
Yeah, and then, so just getting back to the question about legal avenues, yeah, that was at the end. I don't think we didn't get these questions.
Yes, that's right.
I don't know the laws here in Texas, like El Paso, City of El Paso County. However, in terms of what is going to move the needle, I definitely think it's, to Bill's point, it's going to be outside of what is considered respectability politics. And so then that's going to require folks maybe to get out of their comfort zones and meeting with legislators and city council folks and county commission. I don't know if you got, it's like county judge, right? I think, who also might have approved this, putting pressure on all of these political bodies, as well as running for those offices, to be honest, because no matter what we think about whether or not this is going to harm our environment or our people, those decisions were made by elected officials with billionaires because it's going to make them money, right? This is about power. This is not about progress. And anytime they're going to tell you, oh, don't worry, there's going to be lots of jobs and people aren't, it's not going to be that bad. But they're going to be constructing, the people that are going to be working in these jobs are going to construct their own coffins. Like, they're going to construct like having no access to water. And so I would say, again, the political power protesting, this project coming in here in El Paso is META. It's a META AI data center. So the only way it can be successful is if we are utilizing AI tools, if we are utilizing META platforms. And so maybe there's a boycott, right? Maybe we call, and that's absolutely legal. We can do whatever we want with that. Boycott META. I know we all love our Instagram, but we can create something else, right? And it's not AI based, and it's not based in these large corporations, again, who stand to benefit, while people on the ground here in El Paso are going to suffer.
Everything they said times a million, and you know, as an attorney, I'll tell you all, and we are in active litigation against Project Jupiter right now, so I can't speak too much to that. I'll just say litigation is just a tool, as they said. It's only one small piece in the larger movement, and really what's going to move and shake things up and get things like this coming to your county, coming to your city, your community without y'all's input is y'all organizing. It's putting that pressure back. It's getting together and saying, hey, we don't want this. It's showing up to your public meetings together, getting involved in public comment, watching when applications drop and things like that go out. That would be, I would say, that's always going to be a stronger way to push back than just litigation, and we can't rely just on the legal system alone, because one thing about the legal system is it's just like the rest of the United States. It was constructed and designed intentionally to put people like billionaires, white people, white men in power. And so the legal system is a construct in itself, and so we can't rely solely on it. We need to organize as people, look to our advocates, our leaders to help in that, and that's really where I think the movement.
Yeah, I'll just say that it will, again, just further strain our water resources, right? Because this water for data centers, water for any sort of industry, again, it at this scale is going to impact whether it's water from the aquifer or water that's being used on the surface, from surface water.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's connected, yes.
Yeah, it's gonna, no matter what, it's going to have a negative impact, and again, it's going to have a negative impact on people having access to safe and clean drinking water.
Other than water, of course, which we all are in this room concerned about, the most pressing issue is electricity rates right now. Right now, so I believe that is what, you know, this is going to make electricity rates rise in the region. El Paso Electric is also involved with that. They've been in discussions with OpenAI already. We know that. So having across the nation these projects, AI and the data centers, which are two different things, large language models and data centers, they are fueling a debate. People pretty upset across the aisle, red, blue states, whatever, opposed because their electric bill is going to go up because of homeowners would be subsidizing the infrastructure put in to power Project Jupiter, or whatever you want to call it, OpenAI. So right now, I don't know if you know this, because most people don't read their electric bills. There's a 25% rate increase right now before the Public Utility Commission by the electric company, which is owned, by a subsidiary, but venture firm. But any case, that's happening right now. They mentioned in their Public Utility Commission proposal to go up on the rates. They don't say, they talk about, electric poles and the solar farm over here and all that, and then they say, well, they're also going to be data centers, but they're not using that in the rate case, but they mention it in the rate case. So you can expect in the next few years, if this becomes a reality, there'll be another application filed with the rubber stamping by the Public Utility Commission to again raise already, I don't know if you know this, El Paso, Texas has the highest electric rates in Texas. So that, in my opinion, is how, in answer to your question, is how we get people involved in El Paso right now, because they don't understand that. I think the majority of people don't even know that these AI data centers are going to make their electric rates go up, and probably already are with the current rate case.
The IRB bonds, you can engage the community that IRB bonds are gonna apply and the community has to pay them.
Industrial revenue bonds that the county would issue.
Taxes also, taxes, property taxes go up and we have to pay for it.
I think this warrants a little discussion or explanation about what a revenue bond is. They did this in my home for a prison. You know, what the counties and cities can issue bonds. You can issue two kinds that are backed up by taxes, and revenue bonds that are dependent on the revenue that they'll get in the future, like Doña Ana County, to pay for the bonds. Who buys these bonds? They're highly speculative bonds, and they pay very well. They're speculative, high risk, but high reward bonds. And there's a bond market out there. Imagine trying to sell $165 billion in bonds. So a poor county like Doña Ana issuing bonds to go on the open market, it's similar to what they did to build the stadium here, for the Chihuahua Stadium. They issued revenue bonds. And I think those might have been partly backed up by taxes. But I think that's, everyone should understand what an industrial revenue bond is. Something only a county or a city can issue. If OpenAI could issue them by themselves, they wouldn't need the county. They're using the county to get this done because they don't have the money. They don't even have $50 billion to spare, much less $165 billion. They're burning money faster than they can collect it.
Just how to get people to care. And this is like age-old question of community organizing, right? Because you're right. Most people are are like immediate concerns. How do I put food on the table? How do I pay my rent? How do I make sure like my kids have tennis shoes to go to school? But I think it really requires like a public awareness campaign. But then also like people talking to your friends, to your neighbors, and really painting the true picture of what are the negative consequences if we do nothing, right? Because right now, if we do nothing, we can just do some like, what does it say? Time travel and go back to November of 2024, and all the people who said, I'm not gonna go vote, because it doesn't matter. It's now November of 2025, and boy, oh boy, did it matter, right? It would have mattered if it went a different way, differently, but our current political situation, right, it's impacting everybody at every level of their life. And so if we're just focused in on like my family, myself, and all I'm gonna do is take care of me, that's not gonna be enough, right? That's not gonna be enough when construction starts. That's not gonna be enough when you're running out of water. That's not gonna be enough when your electric bill is as high as your rent bill, right? So that's how you're gonna get people to care, is take them through some time travel. And what is it gonna look like if we do nothing? And that's why it's so urgent to act now and do something.
But there needs to be regulation of AI, and they're opposed to that. It has to be regulated by the states. It has to be regulated by the federal government. However, they are very opposed. The tech bros and all the companies, the OpenAI and whatnot, are severely opposed to any regulation or oversight. So to get back, we're not going to get back to. I guess if we could go back in time and they could unbuild them all, but they already built quite a few. But just understand that actually there's some articles, and that there's been at least half of them are being stopped by citizens like you across this country. And Virginia is the #1 place for AI development and the data centers. Texas is #2 in the whole nation. So there's more in Virginia because it's so close to Washington, D.C. I think that's one reason. They're proposing, just like here, every day you hear of a new proposal. In our region here, just to reiterate, we have 7 proposals for AI data centers. 3 of them are open AI, including the one here at Santa Teresa. So we're not going to get back to no harm, but we can stop any further harm. And that's what has to be done. This is the largest, the one at Santa Teresa is the largest project to date that's ever been proposed in the United States. Imagine $1,000 million is $1 billion. There's $165,000 million being invested by a poor county to issue these industrial revenue bonds. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It's the worst case of corporate welfare I've ever seen in my entire 69 years of living on Earth, and I've seen a lot. So, you know, I wish we could go back. This is what keeps me awake at night.
Generally for permits, like air quality permits, stuff like that, it would go to TCEQ. So there will be opportunities typically in air quality permits, water quality permits. Over the TCEQ, you'll have the opportunity to submit public comment on it, and then from there, legally, you can't really challenge something in court until the harm happens, and that's why the legal system is not that protective at times. So it's after a decision comes down, like we saw in Doña Ana County with the vote on the 3 ordinances. After the harm occurs, that's when you can legally challenge, but really it's showing up and making those public comments, finding experts in your community on air quality, water quality, having them submit, things like that. That would be probably how you guys can get engaged real quick in the TCEQ process.
Yeah, and I would say too, so TCEQ is, I guess, your environment department, and also finding out who are your local folks who are on our side, right? Essentially, who are ready to fight for your communities, to fight for the environment, for your water, and try and use that political leverage with these agencies, because they're not immune. That's the other part, right? They're not immune to political leverage, and in spite of the fact that they're being backed by billionaires, doesn't mean that they're in their positions forever, right? And so I think a concerted effort to acknowledge, like, well, how can you be part of the environment department and you're saying yes to all this pollution and contamination and harm to our water and to our environment? Like, why are you doing that, you know, elected official? And so that could easily, now I'm not saying it's easy, but that could be a part of pushing back on those types of permits being approved.
Selling bonds on the open bond market. So if they can't, you know, that's a lot of money to collect. I don't know how they're going to sell $165 billion of bonds, but there's a lot of investors that do want to get in on this. They think it's the best thing since sliced bread, but that doesn't mean it's not a house of cards. There's a huge AI investment bubble right now. It could pop anytime, but the county isn't liable. These are non-recourse bonds. That means the county's not held responsible if they default or if they don't sell the bonds. However, if something did happen, Doña Ana County wouldn't be able to bond a sidewalk in the future because no one would want to invest in it.
Yeah, so what we have been informed, again, like Bill said, that the companies themselves are the ones who are having to pay on the bonds, and if they default, then the property simply goes back to, well, it'll be actually in current ownership of Doña Ana County right now, and whatever assets is left, then usually the financing company, the bank, the venture company, whoever it is, will sell off any of those assets to try and recoup what they invested, and then whoever owns it from there, like we don't know what they would do it from. It'll be empty buildings in the desert, right? They're going to just deteriorate our environment. So there really isn't a clear picture as to what happens when this fails.
So I'm going to say that I am an anxious 20-year-old at UTEP, and I'm anxious because I'm about to inherit, a climate disaster, and I have, you know, gotten the right messaging to get my community organized and go to the politicians and make demands, okay? My question is to those of you who have actually been dealing with the politicians, which I'm assuming it's been more heavy in New Mexico than it is here. What are you finding, and if there's been any dialogue with the politicians here in El Paso, like the commissioners or the city council, is it that they're being given documents that they don't understand, that it's just all legal jargon, and Mr. Ybarra over there is going and giving them the sales pitch, telling them what's in it, or is it because people like his, you know, colleagues are giving campaign donations to these politicians? Like, what are you finding?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. And I'll say all of that is yes. So at some of these public meetings, actually the commissioners stated themselves that they didn't know too much about the project, that they weren't informed. So they were given limited knowledge. A lot of the deal was made at the state level, at the Economic Development Department, and the Economic Development Department is pointing to the county saying, no, the commission negotiated, and so they are not being very forthcoming about what is actually going on. It is true, yes. Representative Nathan Small of New Mexico received a $10,000 campaign donation.
Wow.
A day after we gave, a day after we were at a legislative interim finance committee meeting and protesting this this project and had a meeting with him, and then the next day it's reported that he received a $10,000 donation from Mr. José Ibarra's employer, Digital Borderplex, or Borderplex Digital Assets. And so, yeah, that's what we're finding, right? But however, and so thank you for bringing this up, because also at the table up front, there are, however, other legislators who are not keen on this, right? And so what we're finding is that there's corporate politicians that are signing wherever they can to allow these billionaires to come in and exploit our community, our land, our water, and then there's others who are not. And in particular, Representative Michaela Lara Cadena and Representative Angelica Rubio, they're hosting actually an event tomorrow over Zoom if you guys want to register and listen to this. They're also representatives in the New Mexico legislature, again, who are opposed to this project. They are local to Las Cruces, and they are gonna, I'm pretty sure, they're gonna speak about how during the legislative session this year earlier, in February, or mid-March, near the end of the session, anyway, there was a piece of legislation that got added to, or was amended into a resolution that actually would allow this natural gas power plant to be constructed in the community. And the way it was painted to them was, well, in rural communities, schools and hospitals don't have regular access or access to energy. So they should be able to build dedicated microgrids to supply energy to their hospitals and to their schools. That makes sense, right? Yeah.
No.
Well, yes, but again, it was painted as a microgrid, something very small, something dedicated to this one little, facility. Certainly not what Project Jupiter has proposed to be constructed here in Santa Teresa. But that's how it was painted to them. The bill passed, and now we have this project on the table. So they're willing to be very transparent about that process. So I think in terms of like on the political spectrum, I think we have both corporate politicians who are saying yes to billionaires, and there's other folks who are willing to step up and say no because we believe in our values, and you cannot do that to New Mexico.
how have you battled the misinformation, the campaign? I feel like with those billions and billions of dollars, they have a mighty weapon, and I mean, this is not a hopeful question, but like in El Paso, like I'm sure a lot of people are aware, the climate charter was massively rejected because millions of dollars, over $1 million were spent against it. And even though like Marathon and like Big Oil is like sending out all these flyers, like people bought in. Like people didn't take the time to think, and like the counter message just didn't click. So how have you like fought that along the way? And it's like I feel like the misinformation campaigns are just they're so smart. And I'm sure Mr. Ibarra over here, every point that has been made is already like conniving a counterpoint to like feed to voters. So advice, suggestions, any hope?
The thing about organizing, and in particular, like just thinking about like billionaires, right, and just handing out those checks, like $10,000 is probably very easy to like. Let me just sign that check and like get this legislator on my side. But if that legislator isn't serving their constituents, then why are they there, right? Why are they there? They're there for themselves, they're there for their own benefit. And I think that that's the real conversation that also needs to be had, is then why are we voting these people in? Well, let's just go look at the voting history. I mean, even in my county, Doña Ana County, it's actually really, again, very depressing. A lot of work to do, but we just have, every November we have some kind of vote, and I think there's over 100,000 people eligible to vote, and 25,000 people voted, and they're like, wow, that was a really good number actually for an off year. So really getting people engaged in the process, and I know it's arduous, and I know it's like, oh man, but I don't have time, and and look, they said they're going to bring all these jobs and it's going to be great, and I don't have to like move somewhere else, and I don't have to do this. But what is the reality of that actually happening? And if it's true, then why don't we talk to the legislators who said yes to this? Why don't we talk to the commission? Why don't we talk to the mayor and see what they have to say? And ask them, like, how many constituents did you speak to before you even approve this project? Are you really in your position to serve your community? And if they're not, then there's all these people in this room, right, with one exception, who can who can vote for somebody else who cares about the community. So when that $1 billion contract comes across their table, they're going to say, no, we're not going to do this way. I want to talk to my constituents first. I want the constituents to see this. I want us to plan together. Like, that's where it really needs to happen. And again, I understand that it feels like a big, heavy lift, but that's where the impact can happen. Because those are the people who are making the decisions. Because Oracle and OpenAI, over and over and over again, when we were at these public meetings, I had asked the question very specifically. Have you done an economic analysis of this project absent of the IRBs, right? So the industrial revenue bonds are loans essentially. So if they didn't have access to that revenue, what would Doña Ana County get? And they said, no, we haven't done that economic analysis, because if these industrial revenue bonds are not approved, the project it won't happen here. They'll go somewhere else where they can get issued those industrial revenue bonds. Right? And at that point,
They always say that.
well, at that point, all the commissioners, nobody wanted to talk to me at that point, right? Everybody was backing up and like, oh, well, I'm like, well, it seems like a good idea. It seems like, so I'll be, honest in this way. There's lots of individuals who are ready to vote them out. 100%. Like, what do? to get them out of the way, because we want to come in and change this process, right? Because of how it all happened. But it wouldn't have happened, right, supposedly, if these industrial revenue bonds were not approved. So I would say use your voice, go to your electeds, hold them accountable, and when they don't do what they say they're going to do and they don't serve the community, then we put in people that work for us,
Yeah.
not for billionaires.